One. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. We always start with a question, but because of the fact that I took a little hiatus, we are going to do a true or false question just purely to make it easier for you. So the question is, my company grows when my people grow. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? And I really love that question. And so I'm like, I got to find out who wrote that question. So I found him and I'm honored to have him on the show today. Damon Lembi, how are you, my friend?
Dave, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are the CEO at a company called Learn It. So why don't you fill us in on what Learn It is?
So, Learn It is a live learning platform, all B2B, and our customers turn to us when, let's say, they're promoting people from individual contributors into their first leadership role. And we all know how that goes, right? A completely different skill set.
Sure,
And
sure.
whether it's helping them learn how to delegate, to run better one-on-ones. So we help with that. Or let's say there's too many people communicating in silos. We help break down those silos, work with them on communication. And then finally, these days, I'm sure you're hearing a lot about this as well, as helping organizations learn how to adopt AI. And
Yeah.
we do all of that through live and even in virtual workshops, Zoom or in person. It used to be back in the day mostly in person, but today it's mostly Zoom.
Sure. So when you say live, that means live, like that's something that's going on, like as we speak, there are
Absolutely.
classes going on. And then you mentioned B2B. So this is primarily for companies that are business to business type companies. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of nonprofits and government agencies and everything. What we don't do a lot of is consumer training. Somebody's
Okay.
just in between jobs. I mean, we can, but
Sure.
typically it's usually an organization who's got some specific challenges, and we take our content, maybe we tailor it for what they need. Is typically what we do. And yes, it's live, via Zoom or in person at the a client's
Sure.
location.
Okay. And I don't know about you, what your thoughts are, Damon, but I see a lot of people that run businesses that kind of shy away from education. They shy away from training. And that's where I like that question because what do you think is the answer to that? Is that a true statement or a false statement that my company grows when my people grow?
Well, I certainly hope it's true because I think you found it on my website. So I'm a big
Yep.
believer. I'm a big believer in it. And it's because, look, Dave, you can have the best product in the world. And at the end of the day, I don't care. You need the team behind it to help you sell it. It's not going to sell itself and innovate and learn and grow. And I just think that organizations of all sizes, if you want to thrive, even in this AI world, you got to take care of your team. As a leader, you need to be a people first leader. And as you grow and as your people grow, so will your organization.
So are there, I mean, I feel like there's a group of people, and I'm just curious if you run into these people that think if I hire right, I don't have to train anybody. They will come in with all these great tools and they have everything at their disposal. They don't need really anything if I hire right. So speak to that person that because to me that's a big huge blind spot because you can hire it'd be like we were talking a little bit about baseball prior to jumping on. You could hire a catcher and then try to turn them into a pitcher, probably not going to work. So I think you can hire wrong, but yet still have the right intentions. So is there more to this than just hiring right?
Absolutely. And I do think there are times where you can have a catcher on your team and you can get curious and you can really get to know them and they could be better at being a pitcher or being an outfielder, position people for their strengths. But it's great that you asked me this question because about 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a COO of a venture-backed, a VC-backed company. And his frustration is his leaders won't allow them to invest in training because they're like, well, why should we? I mean, these people have MBAs. They should have all the skills necessary to be successful in their job. But look, first and foremost, I believe that learning and growth is an ongoing process and it's always changing and evolving. And even if people have degrees, great, good for them. continuous growth is paramount, I believe, for your organization and individuals to be successful.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw that article by LinkedIn that's talking about how, the need for degrees are moving farther and farther away, and it's more about specific training, which again lines up with what you're saying. I just feel like there are a lot of people, and maybe even somebody listening here today, Damon, that has that thought. So our hope is that you at least kind of, challenge yourself in that and think maybe I do need some training, maybe my team needs some training. Do you also find I've run into these people too that they want the team to get trained, but they don't necessarily want to be part of it. Have you, excuse me, have you run into those as well?
I've run into the whole gamut,
All
from
right,
everything
cool.
of, yeah, I'm going to provide training for my team as a check the box solution, which I think is a waste of money, right? Just to say we're doing something to, okay, these people need it. I don't need it.
Yeah,
To what happens if we train somebody and they leave, which is a ridiculous way to look at things.
right.
Speaking of LinkedIn, Dave, and I don't know the exact stat, but they
Yeah,
came out with a study, I think it was 2 years ago, that said organizations that invest in their people have an 86% more likely chance that people will stay with their organization
wow.
that invest in training. And I think that's for a lot of reasons. And one of those reasons is that people want to work for a company where they feel like they have purpose and they belong.
Yeah,
And I see, we always recommend for an organization, invest 1 or 2% of your annual income in training and think about the savings that happens right there if you prevent attrition. If somebody on your team leaves, especially a high performer, it's going to cost you about 200% of whatever you're paying them to replace them. Plus,
sure.
you lose most of that internal IP that goes out the door with them. So I think it's really penny smart and pound foolish not to invest in the skills development of the people on your team.
Sure. And I think, some people, we heard the brakes go on at 1 or 2%. They're doing the numbers quick in their head and they're like, holy cow. But I think, have you seen what the ROI would be on that? Have you done studies? Have you seen any research that would give somebody peace of mind that, hey, if I invest 1 or 2%, I'm going to get X out of it?
I think in our industry, one of the most difficult things to do is to show tangible ROI,
Sure.
and it really is, and that makes it even more hard these days because
Yeah.
that's what a lot of CFOs want. A good friend of mine wrote a book called Hidden Value, Dr. Keith Keaton, and it goes right to that point of how does L&D show its ROI. And a lot of times it can be tied back to areas like attrition, like, employee satisfaction, which is a little squishy, but that's why
Yeah.
I led with that stat with LinkedIn about reducing attrition through investing in your team. So no, I don't have any hard stats on the
Sure.
1 or 2%. It's just across the board. What I've seen is that there's been more success when companies are investing an amount like that in their team.
Yeah, when we did our book Growing on Purpose, we connected a strong team equals a strong customer experience that equals profit. So there is a lot of research out there showing that weak teams create customer migration. So when we look at a company and if there's a lot of customers leaving, it's crazy. I don't know what your experience has been on that, Damon, but I see people are like, they're blaming the customer, they're blaming the team, they're blaming the competition, they're blaming the government, they're blaming everybody other than the realization that we might have a weak team and the weak team is not providing the customer experience and therefore that's where the migration comes in. Do you see a lot of like CEOs, CFOs, owners trying to shift that blame to other people rather than take it themselves?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people out there with the blaming or victim mentality. And I bet you have some stats on this. When people ask me, where should you put your focus in? Is it on your customers? Is it on your shareholders or on your employees? I always say to double down and take care of your employees first. Put
Right.
your emphasis on them. If you create a great work environment for them, if you get them that sense of purpose where they're coming in more than just a paycheck, then in return, they're going
Yep.
to take care of your customers. And if they take
Absolutely.
care of your customers are going to renew, they're going to be happy, they're going to share positive feedback around your organization, which in turn will then, of course, lead to shareholder value. So I
Yeah.
always say start with taking care of your team.
Yep. No, that's right in alignment with what we found out too. I mean, when you take care of your team, they automatically take care of your customer better. The customer buys more, they spend more, they come back more often. They actually pay a higher, profit on that because most people want to pay more for a better experience. So it is a little bit of a daunting challenge because I know there's a bunch of people listening around the world right now that are just kind of like status quo, hey, it ain't broke, don't fix it. My team shows up every day or mostly every day. I don't know how I
Absolutely.
would really take this evolutionary change to my business. So I'm just curious, Damon, what would like be a simple first step for somebody that's really never invested in their team? What would be like, what are some simple things that they can do rather than think they have to revolutionize their business?
Well, when it comes to investing in your team, again, there are a lot of simple steps you could take. You don't have to go to A to Z and put together this entire huge program. I mean, you can just start with doing a book club. I did a whole presentation to a bunch of nonprofits who had shoestring budgets around different ideas and ways to invest in your people's growth without spending a ton of money. Maybe just do a book club, or maybe send one individual to a conference and have them come back and train it out to the rest of your staff. I think that's
Sure,
fantastic.
sure.
Or what about like a cross department mentoring program where people get to learn from each other? At the end of the day, though, Dave, it all starts. If you want to build a leadership culture, it all starts from the top. I mean, the
Yeah.
leader needs to be involved and has to participate. And it's not just about the money, it's also about investing the time and giving people the space to be able to learn and grow.
So is Learn It have modules just for leaders and then team modules as well, or how do you lay that out?
Great question. I mean, all of our classes right now are developed into 2 hour modules,
Okay.
and we have them in skill stacks. So if you're an emerging leader and you want to work on communication, we have a skill stack that's around, let's say, listening and communicating across cultures, a whole step, whole group of classes. We
Okay.
also have just core skills around time management or decision making or goal setting. So yeah, we have, I mean, you could take the classes individually, or if you're an individual contributor and you want to get more executive presence, say to get promoted, you can go in and you could take that skill stack as well.
Okay. And so when I looked at some of the titles and some of the topics, there were some that were like, I don't want to say basic,
Mhm.
but it's like, we do a lot of work on communication, listening skills, a lot of the soft skills that you guys do as well. And I think it's funny because you get some resistance of why would we need, don't you have anything like more advanced than that? And I remember I was speaking somewhere in the United States and somebody came up to me after we did our 10 tips to better communicate. And the guy comes up to me and he says, I got to tell you, Dave, I didn't learn a thing. And, I'm like, well, fortunately, I had my thinking cap on. I'm like, well, it's not about what you learn, but the goal is how many of these 10 are you doing like right now? And that's when that light bulb kind of went on for that guy. And then he's like, wow, I didn't realize that. I didn't think of it that way. I was trying to learn something. Is a lot of what we tend to see in soft skills and leadership development, team development, are they simple things that we're just forgetting to do? Or is there a ton of like new revolutionary topics that we've never heard of before in some of your modules?
Well, first of all, I don't like the term soft skills just because I
Okay,
don't think that these skills are soft. But that's the way people always,
sure,
connect the dots, right? So that's what
sure.
we still
Yep.
call them. We still call them that. But I think that they're incredibly important skills. And at the end of the day, none of this stuff is really new. And I think the problem that most of us have is we make leadership in general too complex. It doesn't need to be complex. Let's go
Yeah.
back and use a baseball analogy. Every single year, people go to spring training and they work on the fundamentals, right? And they kick off the season and they move
Yep.
forward like that. look, we all know the fundamentals of how to listen or how to communicate or decision making, even. But whether or not we're actually taking action on those, like that gentleman, sure, he's
Yeah,
probably heard all this stuff, but
right.
and people are always looking for like, okay, what's a hack that I could do where I could try
Yeah,
something different. Forget about the hacks. There's no hack for hard work and just being intentional and doing things the way they should be done. And
sure,
so I think the best leaders and the best organizations, whether it's from your vision or just how to go about things, keep things simple. When you keep things simple and easy to understand and you're intentional about it, I think that's where you can actually make progress and even behavior change.
sure. Yeah, behavior modification, behavior change is a really big thing because that's what really most leaders are trying to get is a slimmed down version, a sped up version of, their team. They want their team in 6 months to be faster, better, quicker, than they are today. So are there modules in the Learn It platform that address that, team improvement, team dynamics improvement between now and the time the courses are done? Is team dynamics a pretty important component for you guys?
Yeah, I think team dynamics is huge. And I also think too many leaders want to make a 180-degree turn, and just expect massive difference. Even if you can get some change, a little bit over time, that's
Oh,
huge, right?
yeah.
Because it's hard to learn. I mean, that's one of the th reasons why a lot of people don't do it, because it's one thing to sit through a class, it's another thing to put things into action. But yeah, we have a lot of classes. I mean, one of our most popular classes is superpower collaboration, just cross team collaboration. Again, bringing back to what we talked about, breaking down, silos, people working in silos. I mean, so that's a big
Right.
one. And there's a great book out there right now called The Collective Edge by Colin Fisher, and it's all
Okay.
about team dynamics. I interviewed him on my show, and he talks about how great teams learn how to work together through social sensitivity, asking better questions. And David, it's not like just having these superstar individual contributors, whether in sales or whatever. It's learning
Yeah.
how to work together as a team, how to collaborate and get everybody focused in the same direction.
Wow. Well, and you talked about small course corrections, and I think that's where I think this gets kind of messed up because, like you said, people want to go to a conference, they want to go to a platform like Learn It, and they want to see these fundamental shifts, like, just like that. And I always, laugh at the story. Like I said before we jumped on, we have a house in Milwaukee and then we have a house in San Diego. So I've flown Milwaukee to San Diego a bunch. And, it's funny because if the pilot says to himself, you know what, we're just going to do like a little 1 degree course correction, just after takeoff in Milwaukee, we're not landing in LA, or we're not landing in San Diego. We're landing, closer to you up in
I was
LA.
going to say you're going to be in my house probably.
Yeah,
Is that-
exactly. And that's a painful drive, right? So
Yeah.
you have this, and that course correction was so minor at the beginning that no one felt it, no one noticed it, nothing really was different. But boy, the result at the end was way different. So is that kind of what Learn It does, is small little course corrections along the way for an eventual better and bigger outcome?
That's our goal. Our goal is to make it digestible and help people stay accountable. I don't like that word. I don't love the word accountable, but more responsible. So let's say somebody goes through, a team puts together a 6 week cohort, and you learn different skills. And then when you come back, maybe even in between, you're working with a coach and you're talking about, okay, what did you learn and how did you apply what you learned, right? Because you
Yeah.
can't just learn all the time. You got to apply something. And now what we've added in, which it's in the pilot phase, but I'm really excited about, is an AI coach. So somebody can
Okay.
go through, let's say, our feedback module. We have our own models, and then you learn it, and then you have to have a difficult conversation around feedback. Maybe let's say in a month, and maybe you don't remember everything, but you could dial up the AI Learn It feedback coach and have a role playing conversation to help
Wow.
you prep and get ready to go to move into that conversation.
Wow, that's great. Which then really answers my next question, because we know this thing called the curve of forgetting. Most of us forget the majority of what we learned within 48 hours if we don't reinforce that somehow. So is AI part of your reinforcement for your Learn It module users? Are you using that a lot more now?
100%. I mean, earlier you were talking about small businesses or businesses of any size who are like, hey, if it's not broken, we don't have to fix it. Let's just stay in our comfort zone.
Yep.
For the listeners out there who are in that position, I'm really worried for you because everybody's going to get disrupted by AI, and you can't just kind of sit on your heels. You need to it's going to happen one way or the other, and that's one of the things that I don't want to say I'm paranoid about it, but it kind of keeps me up at night. Is how
Yeah.
is the learning industry going to be disruptive, and how can we leverage AI in a way that's going to benefit not only Learn It but our customers? And that's what we're doing. We're supplementing, not replacing, we're supplementing our live learning with an AI coach and other AI tools to help people prompt. And because, like you said, with the forgetting curve, you're going to forget 95% of what you learn in a class if you
Right.
don't do anything with it, So
Right.
if you're not applying it. And that's another little tip for your audience. Instead of reading 50 books, find some of the books you like the most and reread them. But
Yeah.
reread them with thinking about how am I going to apply what I learned? And so maybe you only remember a couple things, but you're getting a lot of value out of those things and you're applying them. And the same thing goes with AI.
Yeah. Wow. I remember I was at about a book a month clip for a while. And then I looked at a book and I'm like, did I read this? And I write in my book. So I know if I open it up, I'm like, shoot, I read this and I couldn't tell you one thing about it. So
Totally.
then that's when I stopped that thought process and went back to the books and now I'm reading them two, three, four times because I'd much rather gain some knowledge from that rather than just keep putting it in. And it doesn't feel like it sticks if you just read it once and move on. So, with your book, excuse me, the Learn It All Leader, I'm just curious. Do you encourage people to write in it and use it as a field guide? What have your experience been with your book?
So with my book, it's pretty simple. Kind of like what you brought up. There's no complex terms, and it's a lot of stuff you've heard before. But I think it's said in a practical way with different case studies and ideas that people could turn around and apply. One of my favorite sayings that anybody's ever said to me, which I really believe is learning without doing is treason. And it's so true. It's just exactly what you said. You can't even remember what you learned. So what I try to get people to do is you use my book as kind of like a workbook, So here's a scenario, whether it's around decision making or running better one-on-ones, and trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to apply it from there.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And that's where I think we as business owners, a lot of us, we take the hands-off approach, excuse me, of like, hey, I know what I'm doing. My next book I'm working on is about business blind spots. And it's just funny because, there's so many blind spots that we have. And the worst one is thinking someone else has a blind spot and you don't. And so, because it's really hard to work through a blind spot with a business owner, especially if it's one of those that, hey, great grandpa did it this way, grandpa did it this way, my dad did it this way, I'm going to do it this way. When you get into some of that stuff, that's really a challenge. Um, and so I hope that people listening will be able to confront that blind spot about learning because as Damon shared he before I think he might have shared before he jumped on, he loves to learn. I love to learn as well. So just imagine if you're listening right now and somebody on your team, maybe I don't know, 10 of your 100 people, whatever the numbers are, it doesn't matter. But if you have people on your team that crave knowledge like Damon and I do, and that's in our personality. It's just kind of we're built that way and it's highly likely that you have people on your team that are the same way. So I just want to encourage you to at least look at that from a not from a blind spot perspective, but wow, what do I do with the people on my team that have a quest for knowledge and I'm not really, filling that? They're either going to find it at a different company or they're going to find it in different ways that generally don't help. Do you run into, Damon, a lot of people that just don't have that thirst and quest for knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope you come on my show and talk about your
Love
book
to.
about blind
Yeah.
spots. Because when it comes to blind spots, whether it's in learning or decision making, a lot of us have blind spots, whether it's around biases or triggers that we don't see. And that's why part of learning to me, one of the biggest things around learning is being open to receiving feedback,
Yeah.
because other people have those blind spots. They could see the blind spots you have, but if you're not open to receiving feedback, then you're going to be in trouble. But if you are, feedback can be fuel for growth, and I think that's so important. And yes, I run into people all the time. That's why my book's called Learn It All versus, well, it's called the Learn It All Leader. But know-it-alls have it all figured out. It's my way or the highway. This is how we've always done it. They have
Yeah.
no interest in what you have to say. If you do give them any feedback, they probably get maybe even a little aggressive towards you, or defensive. And so, no,
Yep.
of course, I run into that, all the time. And one thing I want to point out for your listeners, if you have a
Yeah.
team and you have people, to me, sometimes it's less about what you're actually learning, and it's more about learning agility. People practicing that muscle of learning. So at Learn It, my team, they get like $1,500 stipend a year, and they could use it for whatever they want for learning. I hope it's for something that's related to to the work they do. But if they want to go
Yeah.
out and take a basket weaving class with it, fine. I just want
Yep.
people to have that spirit and that interest in continuous growth, not somebody
Sure.
who's just stuck in their ways and lets the world happen to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to change topics and talk some baseball. So let's take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with Damon Lembi, the CEO at Learn It. And the cool part is that you have some ties to baseball. And so, where did this start for you? Did this start as a young kid, or where did the love for baseball start for you?
It started for me at 4 years old, where when my dad threw me a pitch underhand and I hit it off the side window, and I got a trophy in my room that says "Great swing, 4 years old." My
Oh
dad
my
played
God.
college baseball as a pitcher. He was probably decent, but he was my idol, and I was really fortunate that all my friends, we were all into baseball, basketball, football, 49ers,
Sure.
Warriors, Giants. But by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I knew my ticket to playing in college or pros was baseball. I wasn't good
Okay.
enough in football or in basketball or anything, and I went
Sure.
all in. And I was a high school All-American. I got drafted by the Atlanta Braves out of high school and got a full ride, played in college, and so I learned a lot from my time in baseball.
Yeah, and I was trying to understand because obviously everybody has a personal journey with that. What are some things that you learned on your journey, your entrepreneurial journey in baseball? Were there some things there that kind of overlap for you?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, my first huge decision I had to make was, out of high school, do I sign and play minor league baseball, or do I go the college route to Pepperdine? I had a full ride. That was a big leadership lesson for me because my coach at Andy Lopez at Pepperdine, he had this moonshot goal of winning the College World Series, Dave, which was very difficult for a small team of 2,500 students.
Sure.
And so I went that route because of his vision. And
Okay.
things didn't really work out for me at Pepperdine. I ended up leaving. But you know what? They won the College World Series. And so that taught the year I left, they won the College World Series. And that just, which is okay. I mean, I'm still
Yeah.
friends with Coach Lopez. I talk a lot about him in my book.
Yeah.
But that was a great leadership lesson right there about how you can get a group of young individuals together, in this case, all aligned in the same thing. And people thought he was nuts when he said that, but he got them to think outside of their comfort zone and stretch themselves, and they won the College World Series. I mean, I learned so much from baseball. I mean, I learned it. That was my first job when my baseball career ended. But I like to call playing baseball to me was like my athletic education. I
Okay.
learned learning agility, like we talked about, how to receive feedback. In
Yeah.
baseball, you strike out, coach has to give you some pretty tough feedback, and you got to turn around and make a change. Um,
Yeah.
Perseverance, working as a team, discipline. I played for three Hall of Fame coaches, and I learned so many great things from them. And I played for one bad coach, which what I was joking with you
Yeah.
about and beforehand, and I learned what not to do as a leader. So there were so many great lessons. And for your listeners out there, you don't need your kids to be or you to be a professional baseball player or even get as far as I got. But I think that they should be involved in sports. I think sports teaches you a lot from competition to collaboration. And I just think that it's an absolute game changer and so helpful.
Yeah. So as you were growing up, I'm sure that there was a spot, whether it's high school, college, pro, wherever, but there was a spot where it's like, crap, I should probably start taking notes about what these great leaders are saying rather than just let it go because, they were instilling some really good stuff in you. Is there things that you remember from growing up in that world to that you can be like, yeah, I remember when coach said this and that really influenced me. Are there those types of benchmarks in your life that you remember, Damon?
I mean, it's a great question. And yes, I remember a lot of them, and I'm happy to share whatever ones you want. But the funny thing is, I never really thought about them while it was happening.
Yeah,
I reflected on them afterwards when I was moving, especially moving into a leadership role. And I would
sure.
think back to myself, like, what are some of the things that I learned from Coach Lopez or Coach Brock?
Yeah.
And I mean, just a quick one. One of my favorite stories with Coach Lopez was I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I first got to Pepperdine. And he sat me down. And before I had a chance to say anything, he's like, "You don't have what it takes to play here." And I was shocked. And before I had a chance to respond, he said, "That's not what we think about you. That's what's stuck in your head. You have the talent, the physical talent, but until you get past these limiting beliefs and this imposter syndrome, there's nothing we could help you with, kid." I mean, that's a short version of
Sure,
much longer
sure. Yeah,
story. But
yeah,
I learned that. I learned what not to do. I played for a coach who, when things went well, he put himself and took all the credit. But when things didn't go well, he pushed the blame on other people. And I said, I would never want to be that kind of coach. I want to have my team's back. And then I had
sure.
another coach, Coach Brock, who had cancer, and we knew he was going to die, and he died in the middle of the College World Series, but he showed up all the time for us. I mean, how courageous is that?
Yeah,
And just the fact of just showing up. So, I mean, and then I had a high school coach when I was struggling one time. He took me out to breakfast. He pulled out some of these newspaper clippings. Remember, I'm in my 50s, so there was newspapers back then. And he just helped remind me, Dave, about all the success I had, and he said, "You've done this, you've done this, you've done this." And that's something I've always thought about, leading my team is sometimes people don't understand the greatness they have inside of them. And it's your responsibility as a coach to help bring that out in people by sharing with them the successes they've had and also stretching them further than they even think they're capable of doing.
sure. And I feel like that almost could be considered like a downside of learning because you didn't know something and now you're learning about something. I can see how the imposter syndrome can set in pretty easy, when you have that constant, I want to learn. I'm like, I didn't know that. And then I didn't know that. I mean, so you're always learning, but yet it doesn't feel like you ever arrive. And I'm just curious, how did you deal with that imposter syndrome in your world for yourself?
When I was playing baseball or work.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, baseball, I think my imposter syndrome was partially because I got to a level where everybody was fantastic. And I was a
yeah,
little like, do I belong?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so and it took me to almost where I had to go to a junior college, and then I had my last ditch effort of hey, this is going to be it. And so I just kind of went all in, and so people would tell me, because I got a full ride to Arizona State, but they said, don't go to Arizona State, go to a small school, get your degree and move on. And I'm like, screw it, I want to be a baseball player. And
yeah.
that's where I really doubled down on my learning in everything, which really helped me
Okay,
throughout my life. Is I'd be the first
sure.
guy at practice, the last one to leave, but I was really open to changing and adjusting. I was so much more coachable. And what I learned from that experience is if you give up the control and you kind of let things go sometimes, and you have an executive coach whatever it is you have a great leader or a mentor, listen to them,
Yeah,
I mean, and implement. You don't need to recreate the wheel. And so that's what I really learned from sports and about learning itself. And it's kind of carried throughout my career. And it's so funny because when it came to learning in college, my wife and mom probably hate me saying this, but it was very low on my priority list. I
yeah,
mean, baseball was number
sure.
one. There's a couple
Yep,
other things I was interested in, but now For the last 30 years, I've been, it sounds like you too, just been insatiable when it comes to wanting to learn and develop and
Right.
grow.
Yeah. Well, and I think you touched on something that I want people to really kind of let sink in is a mentor somewhere in your life. I'm hoping the listener right now that there's somebody in your life that you can go to, that you can trust and confide in, that can come to you and, hold you accountable if need be. I know a lot of us, enter the entrepreneurial journey thinking I'm going to set my own hours. No one's going to tell me what to do. All those, original thoughts that kind of dissipate pretty quick. But I think one thing that most people screw up is thinking I can do this on my own. And I think about, it's a question for you, where would you have been in your baseball career if you would have listened to nobody along the whole way? I got this. I know everything. I'm the hitter. I got everything. I don't need anybody. Where do you think you would have ended up if you would have had that mentality through your career?
I mean, I probably would have ended up on the bench at Arizona State, maybe not even making it. But if
Yeah.
I would have had that mentality in my work career, Learnus would have been out of business 20 years ago. And what you're saying is so important, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a CEO, because it could get lonely. I mean,
Yep.
sometimes you don't know who to turn to. Yeah, maybe your wife doesn't want to hear it, or
Right.
maybe you don't want to share with you. And there's certain things you can't talk to your employees about. Um, so you need somebody, and you don't have to go at it alone. So you need somebody that you can turn to, and hopefully somebody that you trust who's going to shoot it straight to you. And that's
Yeah.
what I've got a group of guys that I know, and some women too, who like I'm humble enough to be like, hey, I'm really stuck here. I need your help, and or what am I doing wrong?
Yep.
And you really need that. I learned the hard way early on. I made some bad decisions when I thought I had it all figured out at Learn It, a long time ago as far as
Sure.
expanding, and that
Yep.
really woke me up as far as the need to be humble. And yeah, I think that you bring up such a great point for your listeners. You don't have to go about this all alone. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to find the people who could help you work through those answers that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. And I think that whether it's, I don't, it doesn't matter who, I don't care who, but like you said, Damon, most of the time, family and friends are probably not really good at, non-biased,
Mhm.
information. So you want to find, I don't care what it is, CEO roundtable, a group, I don't care, an individual, a coach. There's something special. I don't know what your thoughts are, but there's something special for me when a client calls me at 7 o'clock at night and they're like, I'm stuck. I feel like that's like, wow, thank you, first of all, for trusting me, to help you along in that journey. But I just don't know where people go, where when they do get stuck and they have nowhere to go. If you get stuck in your finances, you go to your CPA. If you get stuck in legal, you go to your attorney, right? We have these people that we have set aside for these certain spots. But boy, I tell you what, for running a business, for learning how to build a strong team, building culture, these are where it's really hard to just find somebody. And then most people are like, screw it, I'm too busy, and it doesn't happen. So I just, again, want to, give that encouragement to everybody listening that if you don't have somebody, find somebody, whether it's a competitor outside of your area. I don't care what it is, but boy, it's just like you said, it's so liberating to be able to go, hey, I'm stuck here and I don't know what to do. In your base,
I recommend with that, Dave, is try to find somebody that you aspire to be like. Say for instance, you want to eventually sell your company and do something different, philanthropy or whatever. Maybe
yeah,
try to find somebody who's lived that already and
sure,
do
good
that.
point.
I'm like you too. I love it if somebody calls me at night, and I also really take a lot of pride where I live. I'm fortunate to have a bunch of really successful friends, leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, and they
Yeah,
turn to me for advice. And I just think
yeah,
that's really cool. I turn to them for
yep,
advice, but a lot of times they're asking me about how do I handle this situation either with my team members or whatever. And when you have those types of conversations, they go both ways and you learn all the time. And so
yeah,
um,
yeah,
setting yourself up in the network where you could find people to talk to. And I think it's giving and getting, always look at what can you offer value to somebody else and then get back in return as well.
Absolutely. Wow, I could talk about this all day. I love this stuff. I want to be respectful of your time and the listeners' time. So I got two questions for you, and then I'm going to let you go. Number one was, what would your tip of the day be, Damon, for somebody listening? Maybe it's something that we covered already. Maybe it's something that we haven't shared yet, but what would your tip of the day be for everyone listening?
My tip of the day is to get out of your comfort zone because I don't think any growth happens within your comfort zone. And if you are leading even a very small team, if there's those difficult conversations out there that you're avoiding with your team members, especially, you're doing them a disservice, right? Because you're preventing learning opportunities from them. So get out of your
Right.
comfort zone, stop protecting your comfort zone, and go have those conversations and do what's best for the team members on your team.
Wow, that's great. We do a ton of training on comfort zone. We're actually doing a talk on it on Thursday to a group. And it's interesting because there's this great diagram. If you just Google comfort zone and it'll show up. But there's a comfort zone and then there's the learning and growth zone where most people want to be. But in between where the comfort zone is and where they want to be is called the fear zone. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. And that's where I think a platform like Learn It would really help to be able to, hey, I want to get out of my comfort zone. I want to grow and I want to learn, but I don't know what to do. And so then again, imposter syndrome shows up, self-doubt, all these thoughts come to your mind, and then you just scrap the whole thing generally. That seems to be, the path. So I love that comfort zone piece. So for again, people listening, you know what? Just find one thing. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said, find one thing every day that makes you uncomfortable. Just and do it, right? Just
Yeah.
one little thing. Maybe it's taking a different route home. Maybe it's, trying a new restaurant. I don't know what that looks like for the individual person, but the more cognizant you are, the more success you're going to have of getting outside of your comfort zone. So that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that one. Um, for people that want to learn more about you, Damon, maybe this sparked something. They want to learn more about the Learn It platform, or they want to have a conversation with you. What would be the best way for people to connect with you?
Really quickly on that fear zone you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah,
I wanted to tell your listeners that's good because that means it's important to you, right? So if you're a little fearful or anxious about it, do what Dave said. Find that, just jump out, go for it a little bit, right? Get the reps in because you'll build up that muscle. So I think that was a really interesting. I'm going to Google the comfort zone thing, but
yeah.
think about that in the fear zone. That means it's good. It means it's important to you. As far as connecting with me, check out my podcast, the Learn It All podcast. I love it. Dave's a great interviewer. I bring some great guests on, and have it's a great learning opportunity for me, and I hope it is for my listeners. That's the Learn It All podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Damon Lembi. My website is learnit.com. I got a great offer for everybody. If you go to learnit.com/free, it's 45 days of free training, not only for you, but for up to 20 of your team members.
Holy cow.
And you could take classes on delegation, Excel, Copilot, storytelling, whatever you want. Take advantage of it. That's learnit.com/free. And then, of course, you can get my book. I got 3 books, but you can get my Learn It All Leader book on Amazon or anywhere out there.
Awesome. And we will put that link to learnit.com/free. We'll put that in the show notes. So again, think about this for the listener. You have a couple choices. Okay. Number one, you can do nothing, which again is on you. I don't feel bad if you do nothing and your life doesn't change. I don't think Damon's going to feel bad. But you know what? The better of the two moves is to actually go to learnit.com and try it for free for 45 days, or jump on LinkedIn and connect with Damon. At least get an idea of what's out there. It doesn't necessarily mean you after 45 days you might receive enough great intel that you're set for a while. But the reality is that you don't know until you try. And again, you can stay in your comfort zone, but we want to see you over in the learning zone. We want to see you in the growth zone because that's where companies thrive. That's where teams thrive. And again, it all starts with a great platform like Learn It. So, Damon, thank you so much for hanging out today. This was awesome. Honored to talk to a professional baseball player. And what position? I never even asked what position. Where were you?
I started at third base, but they put a lot of the slow guys at first base who were good hitters, so that's where I ended up.
I thought they always wanted tall guys that could scoop up everything at first.
Well, I'm
So
tall too. I'm 6'3", so but
okay, well you said little guys, so I didn't know.
no,
I
no,
was
no,
like,
no, 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 no. But that's where they put slow guys. I said
oh,
slow
slow
guys,
guys. Okay,
slow guys.
gotcha. The
Yeah,
slow guys at what? Yeah, or
yeah, not
DH,
little
right?
guy.
That's the
Yep.
other spot. Is just
Yeah, I did that
get
a
a
little
ton.
bit too, but I hated the DH part. I hated DH
Yeah,
there.
that's hard to get engaged in that where you're just sitting
Totally.
on the
Yeah.
bench other than three times a night. That's tough. So
Very hard. You get out, then you have to sit there and think about it the whole time. Getting
yeah, no
old.
kidding. And then if you strike out, you got a long ways between with nothing else in your mind. But how do
Exactly.
I not do that again? So, well, thank you so much for unpacking this platform with us. Hopefully, people listening now realize that their team needs to grow in order for their company to grow. And if you still challenge that, feel free to call and reach out to Damon. He'd love to talk more about that. If you're ready, jump on to learnit.com slash, is it slash or backslash? Probably backslash, I'm guessing,
Well,
for the free.
it is backslash, but Dave, they said that the hip thing to say these days is just slash. I actually chat
Oh,
GPT
okay.
that. So
I didn't
yeah,
know.
because I
Wow.
always
See,
say learnit.com backslash free, and they're like, well, that's like 2012.
well, there is a forward slash, so but whatever.
Okay.
So go to learnit.com slash free and something will happen, hopefully.
Yeah,
If it doesn't, try the backslash,
and
either
it's in
one.
it's in the show notes.
And it's in the show notes. So, yep, that's even easier. You just click there and you roll. So, this has been awesome. Thank you. Love to
It's
be a
been
guest
great.
on your show,
You got
and
it.
love to. I will keep learning from you, and I'm going to have to look at this Learn It platform in more detail and see where my blind spots are because I know I got them.
Well, maybe I
And
could trade you some classes for doing a comfort zone talk with my team. Let's talk
oh,
about
there
it.
you go. Oh my
I know
gosh.
it.
Just wait till you see that circle. You're going to be like, man, that is so cool. So thank you, Damon. And again, thanks for everything that you're doing and can't wait to
Thank
keep
you.
learning from you.
Keep up the great work. You're doing a great job here.